Good morning. Hello. Good to see you folks. Hi, Carolyn, Sheila, Adechi. I hope I'm saying your name properly. Supriya, Kathy, Barbara, Monty. Oh, so nice. And a bunch of other folks that don't know how to access the chat. Or hello, Helena. Um, Yeah, apparently you have to have a Google account or like Gmail to use the chat. I'm not that up on it, but welcome to everyone. So this is an hour-long period. Hello, Carol and Vicky. An hour long from 9 to 10. And as you may know, my name is Jill Davey, and I'm one of the Dharma teachers with True North Insight. True North Insight offers Vipassana Insight meditation retreats and classes and individual support for people learning meditation and developing their practice. So I'm excited about this next little series. It's a 4-part series, so this morning I'm teaching. Hey, Karen. I'm teaching the first of 4 parts about wise effort, or sometimes called right effort, and I'll say more about that in a moment. And then Wednesday will be part 2, Wednesday evening. Next Saturday, part 3, and the next Wednesday evening, part 4, because there's 4 right efforts. And to me, there's a lot of subtleties to this practice, but it's also, I think, can be really practical in terms of the choices we're making moment by moment to what we're paying attention to, what we're feeding. You've all heard the story of, well, no, that's wrong to say, but you may have heard the story of which wolf do you feed I'll talk about that in the second part. And so what are we feeding? What are we giving fuel to? What are we paying attention to? And that is what is going to grow or condition the next moment, because all we have is present moment, of course. So I'll talk more about this in a moment, and just a welcome and a good morning to you all. So I'm actually getting used to this YouTube thing, and feel really lovely sense of connection with you. So we're going to just take a few breaths to settle here, and then I'll give more of a talk, and then we'll share a practice, and there will be time for questions about this, about practice, or about this theme at the end. An important part of wise effort is seeing and understanding how we are distracted and choosing to focus our attention. So an invitation for you to explore that in this time by turning off other things that compel you to want to multitask and click on other things when any discomfort or boredom arises. So right now we're just going to take a few conscious, intentional breaths and let ourselves settle into our intention for this morning. You could take a few deeper breaths if you like, and see if there's an intention for why you showed up here this morning, why you have come to practice. There's something that you're finding supportive or something that you're needing, and just give that a few moments of attention. What is it that has brought you to your practice this morning? And just take a few more breaths with that, and then we'll slide into the teaching part. Okay. So, as I was mentioning, there's 4 right efforts in the Dharma, in the teachings of mindfulness and the Buddha. What's going on there? This is sometimes called right effort. It's part of the middle path, which means the way to the ending of suffering, the extra suffering on top of life's stresses. That is the part that we have some agency over. And the word right makes us think. It sounds a bit judgmental, like if this is right, then this is wrong. If I'm right, you're wrong. If you're right, I'm wrong. That type of dichotomy. And this is right or wise more in terms of, is it wholesome? Is it skillful? Is it conducive to onward leading in terms of wisdom and kindness, compassion, presence? So the word wise or right here isn't so much a line drawn in the sand, but more an exploration for each of us to see what is really helping me to grow in a skillful, wise, kind way. And I don't know about you, but maybe some of us have noticed that lately, but also all the time, not just lately, but we maybe really find ourselves at times caught in obsessive loops of thinking, painful thoughts, and maybe getting caught in a groove of thinking about the extreme or worst case scenarios or things that are unknowable, which is almost everything. That we can cognize is not really what we can know. What we can know is our present moment direct experience. But we get caught obsessing, obsessive thoughts on unknowable possible outcomes. We might also get really stuck in loops around what other people are going to do or what other people might think of anything. And so this first wise effort of this path, the middle path from the teachings of the Buddha and the teachings of awakening, is around how to prevent unskillful mind states from arising in the first place. And each of the other 3 I'm going to talk about in the other sections will cover different parts. Some of them are around skillfulness and how to develop that, wholesomeness. And on Wednesday night, it will be around once an unskillful state has arisen, what to do with that. That's going to be good. This is good too, though. Yeah. So this preventing unskillful states from arising is not really, hear this please, not by bypassing, spiritual bypassing, or by suppression. It's not like, no, I don't hear you. I only think about positive things. This is not what I'm talking about, not what the teachings are talking about. Rather, this includes knowing, really feeling and knowing and seeing when we're caught in the body, in the heart, in the mind, and then skillfully cultivating and directing what is going to inform the next moment in a positive direction, in a wholesome, in a helpful direction for ourselves and others. Okay. So it comes from recognizing the, it's a strong word, but the danger, the I can't think of another word that's less triggering than danger. But in some ways, recognizing the danger to ourselves and to others of feeding thoughts and states that are fueled by greed, resentment, hatred, doubt, anger, and seeing the danger in that, and cultivating other ways. All right. On Facebook, when I was posting this event, I shared somebody's amazing piece of art, which I couldn't find the source of, but which says mindfulness is not enough. Mindfulness is absolutely essential, but it's not enough. To really grow on our path, we also need to have the mindfulness to see what's happening, and then we need to work with the parts of the path that cultivates skillfulness and lets the fire of unskillfulness die down or die out, which is liberation, the ending of the fueling of fires. Okay. So first of all, as I said, it's not bypassing or suppression. That the first part here is acknowledging where we're caught and how this feels, how this affects us, how this causes us to pass on our stress to others or act in aggressive ways or harmful ways or shut down. All of these things. So first we have to know that. And this has very strong language, this part. This is actually from the suttas, from the teachings that were written down, from the oral tradition of the teachings from the Buddha. And it actually says that for right effort, one makes effort, stirs up energy, exerts their mind, and strives. It's very strong. And it's a little, sometimes with a caution, especially for us in our westernized consumerism culture of striving. When we hear strive, make effort, we're like, yeah, I know how to do that. It's kind of the get or done mentality. Like, tell me how to be mindful and I'll be mindful, or tell me how to be skillful and I'll do it. And this is not what's meant here of that kind of acquiring, striving. But it does take a good, strong amount of directing our attention quite clearly, which does take an effort and an energy. But it also saves us a lot of energy because we're using our attention skillfully. So the way, I'm going to tell you a couple ways, not tell, share a couple of ways to help prevent unskillful states from arising. And one of the main ways is by protecting the sense doors. And this really resonates right now when there's so much talk about PPE, personal protective equipment, especially for our dear frontline workers, healthcare workers. So this means gloves and masks and face shields and gowns and all the personal protective equipment that our healthcare workers need so desperately. And with that equipment, they're protecting their sense doors, right? We all are, right? By not touching our face and our mucous membranes where the virus can enter the body. We're all being aware of this and washing and keeping ourselves clean and being really mindful around what we're touching. And so this practice is totally in line with that. This is personal protective equipment for the mind and for all of the sense doors, meaning what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're tasting, what we're feeling, and really being intentional about where we put our energy, what we're paying attention to. So that one of the very first ways we can practice preventing unskillfulness from arising is by what's called protecting the sense doors, which means can mean infinite number of things, and that's up to you to discern. And I'll be happy to hear from you at the end in the chat what's helping you with this. Is, what's on your news feed? How many times a day do you listen to the news? How many times a day do you need to listen to the news? Protecting, like how, many students have said that they've really noticed, how often do I listen to the news, and how often do I really need to, and what happens to me, what's triggered in me, what's activated in me when I have that news stream on all the time or many times a day, and what's that feeling? And is that skillful? Is it helpful? Is it wholesome, conducive? Protecting the sense doors. Also in terms of violence, how much violent imagery are you feeding your heart and mind with? How much binge watching, binge drinking, binge consumption? Right now our shopping is curtailed, hopefully, and but we may notice or have noticed, the constant Amazon priming of our lives of, I want it, I click, I get it the next day. And this is feeding a sense of greed. If it's become a kind of something that's not just like, what do I really need, and really discerning that. So we protect the sense doors, like by what advertisement, what magazines, what stuff am I feeding my desires with, my wants. So really to pay attention with this part of wise effort to see what is it that stirs you up? What is it that's really what's fueling and feeding what states for you? And to, in this one particularly, and each one of the wise efforts have a different angle, a different thing to pay attention to. But for this one, we're really trying to notice what's not helpful, and then preventing that, being proactive and really starting to be intentional about what we're taking in. So also this would include keeping good company. And am I hanging out with folks where it's fueling more anger in me, or more judgment, or unskillful speech, gossip, or addiction? We see this a lot in folks that are in the penal system, and when they're released from incarceration, often don't have the choices and freedoms that many of us have, and they end up keeping the same company again that gets them back into trouble. That's a complex issue. But so what company are you keeping? What are you fueling yourself with? What are you taking in through your sense doors? Is it nurturing? Is it helpful? And how much of it is helpful? Another thing that's helpful here in preventing unskillful states from being fueled and from arising, preventing them from arising in the first place, is our ethics, our ethical commitment in this practice. This means our precepts, 5 precepts of non-harm and non-stealing, wise speech, not no skillful sensuality and sexuality, and also undertaking the training to refrain from intoxicants that cause us to into further heedlessness. So noticing for myself, if I have one glass of wine is one glass of wine, one glass of wine, is that more conducive to having a second? And then at what point do I start being, already that's probably not helpful for me, not skillful. But at what point then do I start to say things I regret or do things I would regret? Okay. I listened to Eckhart Tolle. I hope I'm saying his name properly. Last name I'm always unsure of there. He giving a talk yesterday, and he referred to a line from Shakespeare's Hamlet, which you may have heard. This isn't a direct quote from the Hamlet Shakespearean language, but is paraphrased. This is the way Eckhart said it, was that, so that gives me permission. Eckhart said it that way. Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Ooh, this is interesting. Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So that how we can practice with this is really paying attention to the bare sense doors, like seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing, touching or sensing through the body is sensing. Even thoughts are thoughts. And so to practice that bare attention to those sense door contacts as they're arising, without adding a lot of commentary. Of course, this happens anyways. The commentary happens, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday night. But it's a way we're going to practice with this, is just paying attention to the bare sense door and noticing how the commentary starts to spin off. And so to use this in a formal practice, but also in daily life, we can kind of double down, if you will, on our other sense doors, because we know the mind sense door proliferation is called papancha, how it can just feed it on itself, fuel itself, and spin us into states that are very, very painful. And so kind of really turning up the dial, turning up the attention on our other sense doors can help calm the whole system, but can also help us prevent the mind from spinning off. We just keep coming back, pay attention over and over again to what's really happening right now, because all we have is present moment. And how we are meeting the present moment will inform, this is called karma, will inform how the next moment is totally affects how the next moment is. A previous moment of mindfulness conditions a future moment of mindfulness. And a previous moment of skillfulness, wise effort, conditions and informs a next moment of wise effort and skillfulness. What else about that? Okay. I think that's enough. That's a lot of words. So particularly, we can notice how practicing in this online way, I'm very grateful for it at this time, but it's difficult. It definitely has challenges built into it because we're on these devices, and it's really easy. I mean, it's built into it, it's conditioned deeply to click onto something else and swipe onto something else. So particularly for this practice, if you're able to bring this intention now, we're going to do some practice. To be careful of your sense doors and really allow yourself to just tuck in right now into cultivating a single pointed attention in the way that I'm going to guide us. All right. So it might be helpful for you to just put down, if you're on a phone or a tablet, just put it down and let the sounds come. I'm not going to be doing anything interesting here. I'll be resting my eyes. And if you're near a mouse or a computer with that kind of device, you might want to push back away from it so that you're not tempted, not so readily tempted to multitask. You can lay down, especially if you're spending a lot of time sitting in front of a computer. If you're able to recline, if that's helpful to you right now, that's fine. You could stand up. Or just sit in whatever way feels restful and comfortable. And then beginning to rest your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes. You could, if you find it helpful, certainly closing your eyes. But if that feels uncomfortable for you, you can just rest your eyes downward with them being slightly open. And just noticing the area of your face, seeing if there's any tension held there that isn't needed right now, and seeing if that could soften. So part of the activation that stirs up these unskillful mind states and that we're trying to prevent them from arising can happen because the body is already contracted. You might like to also, just touch your face and smooth your forehead or relax areas around your cheek or jaw if that feels helpful, or a soft touch around your neck. If it feels soothing and comforting, helpful to you, you could place a hand at your heart or your belly. And we begin just by noticing how we are in this moment. And seeing if we can notice or feel any sense of already being caught in a state of arousal, of fear, of anger. Certainly doubt is likely present. That might be noticed as a state of mind by the thoughts that are coming and going, or it might be noticed by sensation, tension, numbness. And we just want to bring a kind attention to this, like, hey, sweetheart, this is hard. And kind of sitting beside ourselves, embracing ourselves is in this way of I'm going to pay attention and take care of myself so that I can pay attention and take care of others, of all beings. And really feel free to just breathe in whatever way is helpful to you. You might need a sighing breath or an ah breath. And so for this practice this morning, we're really going to do this kind of doubling down, turning up the dial on the other sense doors, as we call them, the other senses, the eyes, ears, mouth, the sensations of touch, smell, and letting the mind just take a back seat a little bit. So it just goes a little more into the background when we bring these other aspects to the foreground. So right now in the foreground is hearing my voice, but also now in this silence, and really turn up the dial to pay attention to what sounds are in your environment now. Sounds from within your home, from others that may be in the home, sounds that may be coming from your body. And some of us might be able to hear sounds from outside. And if any judgment or story about the sounds is arising, like, I like this sound, I don't like that sound, I wish that one would stop, or more of this, or spinning us off into stories about a sound. I'm just noticing that and saying, not right now. Right now, I'm just going to notice the bare experience of hearing coming and going. Now we'll turn our attention to another sense door. If your eyes are closed, an invitation here, you could just slightly open your eyes so there's just a little bit of light and shape and color coming in, a little bit of seeing, but your eyes are still downward. And you don't need to look around your space, but just open your peripheral, soft, receptive vision. And just noticing there's an experience of light, shape, color. And again, just in this bare experience of seeing, we might notice things we like to see, things we don't like, things we prefer and don't prefer, things that we have stories about. And we just let all of that slide a little bit further into the background. And in the foreground, we just experience bare seeing. If you have the privilege of sight. And if you are not sighted, even with eyes closed, there's light and shape often dancing across the field of this sense door. And if that's not available to you, you can just stay with the hearing sense door. Now, if you like, you could rest your eyes again. If you're in your practice, you prefer keeping eyes open, that's okay. Now we're going to turn our attention and turn up the dial of attention a little bit more onto the felt experience of the body, the sensations of touch. And we'll move right down as if there's magnets drawing your attention all the way down into your feet. Your feet awaken. And without necessarily needing to move the feet, just see how much you can feel in your feet. Sensations of pressure or tightness, coolness, warmth, texture, contact with ground, contact with air. Feel as much as is possible with every aspect of your feet, toes, soles of the foot, between the toes, tops of the foot, ankles, outside of feet, inside of feet, hardness of bone, softness of flesh. Lots of sensation here for those of us with sensation in feet. And the mind might become bored with this and want to move on to other thoughts. And you're just training your awareness to begin again. Feeling the feet. Feeling the feet. From the feet, gently invite the awareness to begin to move up the lower legs. And then feeling sensations of the knees, front and back and sides of knees. And then to the upper legs. Just feeling texture, pressure, contact, whatever sensations are available. And if you feel like there's no sensation there, just noticing that as a sensation. No sensation can just be known without adding story. And then just feeling the general area of the pelvis, the contact with the seat if you're sitting or reclining, the shape of the bones, softness of belly. And lightly moving your attention up into the torso. Again, feeling pressure or contact of clothing in different areas. You might feel sensations of movement, sensations of chair. And once you kind of move the awareness up towards the top of the torso, then We'll go down the arms and just feel where the arms are resting. Shape of arms. Temperatures, textures. And then when you're ready, we'll slide the awareness fully onto the hands, and we're going to hang out there for a while. Lots of sensation in the hands. For most folks, maybe not all. And just feel where the hands are resting. Sensations of the outer hands and where they're touching. Maybe sensations felt inside hands of tingling or pulse or vibration. Temperature. When the mind moves away, very gently with kindness, training, coming back and just feeling as much as is available of sensation in hands. And then just to complete the body scan, to include the whole body, we'll come back up to the area of the top of the shoulders. And feel any sensations across shoulders and across the throat and neck, and then up to the skull and the face. This is another area where there's lots of sensation. It's usually a relatively safe area to pay attention for folks. Feet, hands, and face. So we'll just rest here for a little bit longer, noticing any sensations. This is also a skillful place for us to practice feeling sensations on the face without scratching and touching the face. Include the skull, back of the head, sides. Sensations of moistness in mouth and eyes and nose. Sensations of movement. And then we'll just end with a few breaths here of feeling whole body sitting. This is sometimes called, this bare attention of Eckhart calls it the isness, or sometimes it's called the suchness of just feeling what is without adding. And let yourself rest as you open to the experience of hearing these 3 rings of the bell before you end your practice. And then as you're beginning to move or open your eyes, see if you can stay with just the bare attention. Moving is happening, seeing is happening. Thank you for your practice and for your well-being, for all the well-being of all. So we have some time here for any questions about this theme of this first aspect of wise effort, of preventing unskillful states from arising, about that theme, about the practice, or about any other practice related to this mindfulness dharma. If you're able to access chat and have any questions, you could also email me questions beforehand, like or Jill@riversoundretreat.com, or through the True North Insight website. Questions about practice. If you're not able to access chat, you can try to find another way to connect. And yeah, did anybody notice there with that practice, as you were really intentionally directing your attention, attention, that there's maybe a little less, that you were able to prevent some unskillful mind states from proliferating, from taking over, as you were really turning up more attention with your other sense doors. So let me know if that was helpful to you, or if you noticed something like that, or found it not helpful in some way. I'm open to hearing that. Any other questions about? I would also really love to hear what ways work for you around preventing unskillfulness. Like, in what ways do you protect your sense doors? Being careful about what you're taking in. Has anybody been doing that or noticing that effect? You're welcome. Anybody? To not notice the story making and coming back to the senses. Yeah, thank you, Supriya. The story making happens unless we're in a state of deep concentration after, many months of practicing full time. Maybe no, and so not being harsh with ourselves when we notice the mind has gotten caught into a loop, but just include noticing that, and then saying, where am I going to direct my attention? Curbing the news consumption, yeah, really helpful for me as well, Supriya. Thank you. That's great, Marianne. Story making is happening. The practice took me away from feeling like there's a clock ticking inside my head. Yes. Oh, totally, Terry. Yeah, that's a great, great description. Started the morning with a lack of ease, but somewhere when being aware of the sound and so many layers of it inside, outside my house, I gained some ease and calmness. That's awesome, Natalie. I find hearing is a great practice because we can, of course, do it any time. Those of us that have that sense door of hearing, not all do. And it's really grounding, but also safe. It's not as close as coming into the breath, which is difficult for many right now. Oh, I see. Can I talk a bit more about avoiding the judgment in preventing? I am noticing my mind loop, but then head straight to judgment. Yeah, you're doing it, Barbara. That's such an awesome, brilliant question. And I'm sure you're absolutely not the only one experiencing that. But the way you've described it means you're already also just noticing the judgment. So we notice, oh, mind is caught. Oh, I've been gone for a while. I was grocery shopping in my mind or thinking about whatever, everything. And then we're like, oh, I'm no good at this. There I go again. My mind is so whatever, fill in the blank. And then we're like, oh, as you described it, Barbara, you're already noticing the judgment. So this is just another thing noticed in the present moment, which is the practice. And that's noticed. And then it's like, right now I'm going to pay attention to this. And I listen, or I feel, or I see, whatever sense door you're paying attention to. So over and over, it's just like training a puppy. If we're harsh with the puppy, we're trying to train it to come to us and sit. And if we're like yelling at it or scolding it, it's going to be out of there. And so we want to just come back with kindness and begin again. Come on, sit down, feel this, start again. Yeah, good. Yes, being in nature, excellent, excellent, Natalie. Totally wakens up our sense doors and prevents this proliferation of mind states by, it can. We can be gardening and not gardening. Like the body is in the garden and the mind is whatever, elsewhere. So that's great that you know that that's a helpful place for you where you can really just awaken the other senses when you're really paying attention. That's great, Barbara. All right. Yeah, gratitude for our little bits of nature or big bits of nature that we're able to get out into. Thanks, Kitty. Okay, we're almost at 10, so thank you. The next part, it's going to be really good, but if you can't be there live, these are all recorded and available anytime to watch again. So Wednesday, 7:30 to 8:30, Wednesday night. We'll be back talking about the next one, which is when unskillful states have arisen, how to abandon them. Really good. So helpful. So this one today was preventing from arising. And then when they do arise, which as we all know, they do, then how to abandon them. I missed a question there. Do you think that meditation posture can cause certain types of feelings to arise? Yes, probably. For sure. That's a big question. You might want to message me on Facebook or through True North Insight and to say more about that. I'd like to talk to you more about that. Whoever wrote that question, because could be a lot there to unpack and to talk about what's coming up and what posture might be more skillful or how to be with that in a skillful way. So I'd be happy to talk to you more about that one. Thanks, Supriya. Thanks, Monty. So down below the video, there's like a little arrow on your right hand side. And if you click on that, there's a bit of a drop down menu that has links to support True North Insight or to support me by donation. And I love you all. May we all take care of ourselves so that we can take care of each other. Thank you. Have a sweet day. See you, Ria. Bye.